Good question regarding guides and helpers and working through this whole process of being psychic or what's going on or working energetically, or there's such a minefield of not knowing where to start, not knowing where to begin, or is this who's this coming in, are they helping me, or being fearful that you might think, oh my god, is that a demon or whatever it is, and not knowing exactly what's going on. I would always say you got to start from the basics, got to start to learn about your own self, your own energy first. If you get to understand what's going on for you in your life, you then can start to separate the energies of what's coming in for you. So it would be then, I'm also always going to say learning how to meditate, learning how to do chakras, because I find that's important about opening up, closing down. If not for the chakras, learning a sequence of you open up your energy and you close down. And then through that whole process, then you'll have a look at then who's stepping forward to assist you. Some people, it might be that you feel familiar to a certain energy, and it may be that it might be a grandfather, a grandmother. My grandmother comes in, my grandfather comes in. I know it's them because there's something about them. I could smell a smell. For me, it was a smell. Some people are going to feel it or have a knowing or hearing, whatever. I smelled a smell from my nan. It was mint. She used to always put on potatoes. That started coming through in the early days. Then my grandfather came through, and there was images I was shown that could be connected with my grandfather, so I knew he came in. But for me personally, it was really about, through me going into meditation, silencing the busy mind, that you allow then to be aware of what's going on around you. So you feel the energy. It's almost like being aware of your chakra system, your energy fields around you, and feeling around. And when I first started doing this, I remember I kept on feeling as if my hair was on my face. But when I actually pushed it away, my hair wasn't nowhere near my face. It was just like a physical thing I kept on feeling. And then as I started doing more and more, like my body started feeling things, as in, I might have tingling going on my arms, or feeling cold, or feeling hot, or whatever it is. Because we have the human vessel, we have senses going on. That's why, we're given those senses like animals. We can see, we sense things, we feel things, we smell things, whatever. It's all going on for this reason, for us to be able to manage the human existence, to maneuver ourselves in our world. So when we start looking at guides, it's then start feeling into what's going on behind us, to the side, to the front of us. When I first started learning this, I wasn't sure where to bring my guide in, and started training, and then being aware that I could move my guide and ask my guide to stand behind me. Then I would tune into that guide and sort of say, do I know you? Are you a family member? And then seeing what came up next, and going through it all and feeling into a masculine or feminine energy. So, I have when I'm working, I can feel females or feminine energy, my guides, to my right hand side, and masculines to my left hand side. But that's not going to be the same for everybody. So it's about tapping into it. It's about feeling into the differences, the subtle differences. It's like listening to a whisper. At first, it can be a little whisper, or when my guides started coming in originally, it was like I could hardly hear them or feel them or sense them. And the idea is you have a relationship, you build a relationship with your guides. You do this so often that you do it daily, that you check in, who's with you. And if it's angels, you ask about the angel energy, and that's a different frequency totally, and you raise your energy to a different level, because I'm an angel practitioner as well, and I learned that as well. And it'll be a different frequency to bring my angels in than it would be to have my guide step forward. I'm covering this on a course that, in the next couple of weeks, that will be out there shortly. But yeah, you check in, and then with your gatekeeper, who's like the bouncer on the nightclub, again, you'll check in with that energy to sort of see who's that, what's going on with them, how can I feel them, how do they feel. And they feel very different. They're there to protect you, there to support you, helping your energy too. With your, when I finish with a client, if I think of some of the murders I've done, or some suicides, having a gatekeeper in, my gatekeeper will go, right, okay, it's time for you to get out now. And then they'll leave, whatever energy comes in, it will help to get them out. Depending on who I'm working with, what I'm doing. But the idea is to have the connection, the relationship with your guides. It's the idea is to tune into them, to see what's going on. Loved ones, it's great in the sense that, you could be doing your daily stuff, and suddenly you might feel be aware. I had a lady the other day that came to see me, and I could hear her keys on the side, and it was to do with that her mother, it was her set of keys, and all I could hear with these keys, it was like hearing chalk, you know, and the nails on a chalkboard going down. It was scrapey noise, and it was just the way that her mother came in. And I asked her, so could you take that away? I don't need to hear that anymore. I know who you are. She stepped forward. And they can change. So you might have those guides for a certain period of time, depending on what level of work you're working on. And then you might change. Something goes on in your life, and it's normally those traumas and experiences that you then up level, you upgrade, because that's what soul lessons are about, and trauma and other things. They come in to upgrade us to some degree. And then when you start changing, your guides start changing, and it takes time to get used to them. It's like, they just said, it's like putting your feet in a pair of shoes. Sometimes they can cause blisters or whatever. So it just depends. So then your guides, they change around, as I say. Different things are going on for your life, they come in. It's just different. But I work with guides, angels, you might have saints, deities coming through, goddesses coming through, aliens coming through, galactic council. But that's just because I've been doing it for some time, and I do this every single day. So guides are there to guide you on your journey, and you ask them, you have that relationship. How can they guide me? How can they show me things? What can I do? That's what they're there for. It's like, okay, thank you. It's like leading, it's very rude of them. It's like leading the blind sometimes, in the sense that nobody knows what they're doing, where they're going, and they just say, hey, take me by the hand, I'll show you the direction to head in. And that's what they do. Hope that answered your question. Then the opposite of, like, you've invited your guides in, and then is there such thing as demons, and what you're bringing in, and is what you think is a good energy that you're bringing in, could it then turn nasty and everything else? Now, okay, there's so many avenues I could go down here. Let's have a little look, and that's really talking about attachments. That's in a way. And okay, what I know and what I feel is that when we have guides, when we do the work, we've really got to look at our frequency and where we are at in ourselves, okay? So if you're feeling quite low and it's very hard to get your energy up, as in feeling light, not we're going to feel light and lovely and fluffy all the time, but you've got, so when I'm working with my angels, the energy is very different. When I work with my angels, I have to feel the energy of something that's bright and beautiful that's happened before. So I normally pick situations or experiences that have happened. It's normally around my children that I feel so that I remembered or reminded of something fantastic that happened for them. Something that's so heartwarming, I feel like I want to cry. That lifts my energy up. And I always bring that in. I bottle that and I bring that in, and my angelic energy comes in. I bring it down, and there's a technique you can do, and I bring down my angels and ask them to connect to that high energy frequency. That's a different way. That's something totally different. When I'm working with my guides, I open up my chakras, and I open up to the light, and I want to work to the highest good, to my highest self. I want to work in that high energy, but I put it out there. I set the intention to work for the highest good of myself. Must set that intention to work within that energy source. And then guides will come forward who have been appointed to me to assist me, to help me, and they know who they are, they know when they come in. All I have to do is say I'm open to that, I set the intention, they come forward, okay? And I've never ever, in the years I've been doing this, I mean, I was studying the College of Psychic Studies over 20 years ago, and learning the techniques, why it's important to learn the basic techniques. I have brought forward positive, high energy guides that step forward to assist me. Now, so they're helpful. If your frequency is quite low, so I will give you this situation that actually did happen. And before it happened, I was always skeptical about it. I wasn't too sure. But personally, it's happened. And since it happened, there's been a number of things that have come up. And I've worked with this as well. My son, he's going to hate me. My children must really hate me. My son was staying... he used to sleep in this bedroom. This used to be his room, and he was going through a little bit period of time. He was a little bit, I say that, a little bit sad, possibly in the sense that he was working in Edinburgh, had no family around, and his energy level was a little bit lower in itself. came home. He was celebrating something. I think it was someone's birthday. It might have been his birthday, I'm not sure now. And I remember they were in the kitchen and he was with his cousins, his sister and his girlfriend, and they were all having a little bit of schnapps and going out and getting ready to go out. And they went out very early in the evening. Now his energy of how he was feeling himself, a little bit upset, a little bit dark, a little bit depressed, a little bit, maybe he didn't really realise 100% how he was feeling, not to that low level as such. And he went out on the tube. He went out with his family, you know, as I say, they were going out for a drink, and it was very early in the evening. And I remember, you know, I was going to bed, you know, about 10 o'clock, whatever. Anyway, they went out, and then he was on the train, and this enters everything, you know, about if you're drinking spirits. It goes down a whole rabbit hole of other things. So he had a little bit to drink, wasn't drunk, was sitting on the tube. They crossed the platform to get onto the other train. And as they did that, something happened. He sort of switched. And when they got onto the other train, onto the Victoria line, family members had noticed that who were with him, he seemed to have changed his personality a little bit. He was acting out of character for himself. I don't think I want to mention what he did on the tube necessarily because it would be upset. But he wasn't himself, shall we say. And when they got to Oxford Circus or Piccadilly Circus or somewhere, they went to I think it was a wine bar. And when he went in, he's not cocky, my son. He's quite, you know, he's a gentle soul. When they went in, if I remember the whole story, I'm sure he'll correct me. He went in and he was a bit like champagne, and he was clicking his fingers and he was acting out of his character, and he was very rude to the waitress, and you know, his girlfriend was saying that he really wasn't acting himself. He was a different person, and he was switching from being really lowering himself on that evening, and then he was crying and he was himself again, whatever. All I know is I went to bed, and at 12 o'clock, they came through the door, and I was like, this is very early. And I know his girlfriend came to me, she goes, Anne, he's just not himself, and I was like, oh, he's had too much to drink, you know, whatever. And she said, no, the way he was acting, he was swearing at people, using language he doesn't use. And I was like, oh, I've never heard him say things like that before 21. And I went downstairs to have a look at him. Now, because of my skill set, shall I say, when I looked at my son, and I've been around people who have committed terrible crimes to people, when I looked at his face, it was like I saw an overshadow of someone that was not my son. So I was looking at his face, but I could also see something else. His eyes were totally different, and he looked different. And his body character, the way he was acting, was very different. And I was like, straight away, I was like, it's not him. And what had happened was there was an attachment made. So there was a low level spirit, somebody who hadn't passed over as such, and was hanging around, and it was almost as if he walked into him. Now you have to be at a similar frequency to some degree to pick up on those low energies, or you have to be totally off your head on drugs or alcohol. And so he had brought home an attachment, and he was acting very strange and bizarre. He was doing a lot of things which I won't go into because it's quite personal. And then in the end, we got him to his bedroom, which was this room. We got him in the bed, and I said to his girlfriend, you do not share the bed with him, you go downstairs, go away from him, because it was sort of manhandling in a way. And I said, this is him, it's not him right now. And I think it really freaked her out. She was a little bit scared by it, and other family members were a bit, oh my God, what the hell's going on? So he was in this room, in his bed, and I knew it wasn't him, and the whole room felt very cold and clammy, and it was horrible feeling. And I was like, okay, what do I do? This is the first time I'd experienced it with him. There's been other things I've experienced, poltergeist and everything else before. So, but I was in the room with him, and 1 minute he was like, Mum, and he was whining. He was like, Mum, I don't know what to do, something's happening, and I don't understand myself and how I'm feeling. And the next minute, it was literally, he'd lift his head up off the bed and he would swear at me very aggressively. And then I was like, this is not him. Even his tone of voice changed. Yeah, so he kept on switching. So what I did is I then left the room, I closed the door, I went to my bed, and then for a couple of hours I could hear him twisting and turning in his bed, and I was like, what the hell do I do? And I'd go in there and he was like, Mum, help me, Mum, help me. And the next minute he'd switch again and he was very aggressive and swearing at me, and this is not like him at all. So I then reached to my guides and I said, guys, you've got to come in. I don't know what to do with this. I've not had this before, especially with another human being. And literally was told about bringing in a candle and light and asking if there was anyone on the other side that'd like to come through to collect him. And then what happened was I heard, because I knew there was a spirit that attached themselves to him. And what happened was his mother and his grandmother had passed such a long time ago, and they'd been waiting for him and he'd never passed over. So what it turned out to be was that if we go back to, I think it was around about the 80s when we had the yuppie sort of time, this guy had committed suicide in the city, and he hadn't realised actually that he had passed over. He was just having fun. So he'd done this before, connected, attached himself to other young guys similar age to my son, and that's how he was living his life on the planet still. He hadn't crossed over totally, and the energy was such a low frequency of him where he was at, where he was so depressed, that he'd attached to my son, because my son had been feeling down at that time too. So the energy's connected. So you've got to be a similar energy to that. So there's a lot of things with depression and stuff, and the amount of people that might be locked away in psychiatric units or schizophrenia. There's another whole, can of worms we're opening, but I'm happy to, answer them another time. But so anyway, so what happened with him, called them in, and the difference was literally, it felt as if this energy was being drained through my son's body. Nathan started feeling calmer in himself and he was quieter, and there was such a difference in his energy. The room, I breathe and you could see the cold air in the room. And then this energy held on to my ankles while I was standing by the doorway and said, I'm not going. And I said, you are going. And then I shone the light brighter, the candle flame made it even lighter, and asked them, with love, take him please. With love, you need to leave. And literally as they did that, I could feel the room temperature change, and he went straight away. So depending on your frequency, on where you are at, depends on what you attract in. So when you're opening up to guides and everything, you always want to work with the higher self, higher consciousness, higher energy, love and light, bring it in. That's what you want to do. And that's why you have to learn to have a gatekeeper by your side, so that you don't bring anything else in. Your gatekeeper will keep everything else away. When I spoke to my son in the morning, he was absolutely exhausted. They'd said to me he hadn't drunk much at all, only what he had here at the house. That was 2 schnapps or whatever it was, or vodka. And he said he felt such a depression and he felt so low when he had this entity inside of him, this attachment, so low, that I said, what were the images? Now I could see the images already, and he told me that he felt that this person had committed suicide and they were stuck. And there was this whole stuff that was going on. So he'd felt that himself. And then when I said to him what happened, he said, it makes sense.